This section is going to go over some podcasting tips and tricks. We're going to cover practicing and speaking tips, a little bit about technology, how much to plan or to script your podcast, some interviewing tips, and listening to other podcasts. The number one tip on starting to podcast is to practice. The great thing about podcasts is that they aren't live, so you don't even have to publish your first attempts if you don't want to. You can also think about what it is that you're worried about, such as interviewing, speaking confidently, not using a script while you're talking, and practice that aspect. That might mean getting a friend to help with practice interviewing, using a bullet point list to practice speaking about a topic, or just recording yourself talking and practice listening to your own voice, which can be a little bit strange at first. And it can feel weird at first, but try to use hand gestures while you speak, and smile and act like you're talking to someone else, even if it's just you recording in a room. This helps your voice to sound more natural, energetic, and engaging. And it's also okay not to be perfect. If you think about how people naturally speak, everyone stumbles a little here and there, and it's okay to sound like yourself. In fact, that's a real bonus because you're unique and that helps make your podcast unique. If you find you pause a lot or use words like all the time, you can also always edit long pauses out if they bother you. But don't edit out every pause. Pauses in speech are natural and help your podcast to sound natural. It's easy to focus on the technical side of podcasting, doing lots of research about equipment, software, and editing, but your main focus should be on the content of your podcast. That's what will keep listeners engaged and coming back for more. The next section in this podcasting resource will cover those equipment, editing, and publishing questions, so you can come back to that later. So, how much do you need to plan your podcast, and do you need a script for episodes? The short answer is, it depends. The amount of planning or scripting you do for your podcast will depend on what type of podcast you're doing and your own personal preferences. Some general tips on planning and scripting. Although you can edit afterwards, it's helpful to at least have a general plan of your episode or interview. This will help keep your episode or your interview focused. But try not to script every single word that you say. Reading from a script can make you sound more detached or distant from your listener, and it can sound a lot less natural. Additionally, if you script all of your questions for an interview in advance and then stick rigidly to them, it ends up sounding more like an interrogation rather than a natural, flowing conversation. It can be more helpful to make bullet points of the topics you want to cover in your episode or interview and use those as prompts. This can help you sound a lot more natural. If you find a script helpful because it helps you feel more confident, try practicing just speaking about your topic using bullet points as prompts until you feel a bit more confident doing things that way. Remember, podcasts aren't live, so you can edit out bits or redo things as many times as you like. And you don't have to make your first practice episodes live or publish them at all if you don't want to. So now we're going to think through some tips about interviews if you include interviews in your podcast. So firstly, planning and preparation. When asking someone to be on your podcast, make sure you prepare them by telling them what the focus of the interview will be. You don't need to give them specific questions in advance, but just what the general idea is so they know what you want them to talk about. So an example of a way that went a bit wrong is if you're doing a careers podcast that focuses on the routes that people took from their degree to their current work, but you only tell your interviewee it's generally about career options for people who do a research degree. When you do the interview, they then keep bringing their answers back to details about their current role rather than the route they took to get there, because that's what they think that you're interested in. So you don't actually get the interview that you wanted or the information that you wanted from your interviewee. It's good to do a little bit of research about your interviewee related to what it is you're talking about. So, for example, if you're interviewing another researcher, what's their area of interest? What have they been working on or publishing recently? How does all of that relate to what it is that you're interested in discussing with them? This will help you create question and topic ideas, particularly if you're not sure how to start the interview. As discussed in the planning section, try not to overscript so that you can be flexible with what comes up in the conversation, but do have a general idea of the areas that you want to discuss. You can take these bullet points into the interview with you as prompts for the discussion. This helps to keep your interview focused and also helps you if there's a lull in the conversation and you're not sure what to talk about next. Before you go to the interview, check your tech is working and also that you have some extra batteries just in case. If you're recording remotely, make sure that you're familiar with how to record over Zoom, Skype, your phone, whatever it is that you're using, and practice recording if you haven't done it before. Send some clear instructions to your interviewee for how to download and use the software, like Zoom if that's what you're using, in case they don't already use it. So now we're going to think about how to actually ask questions in your interview. So if you do interviews as part of your research work, like in qualitative research, you can use those same questioning skills in your podcast interviews. It's all still relevant. Try starting with an easy, broad opening question that's relevant to your topic. This helps both you and your interviewee just to warm up and get the conversation started. And because it's not live, you can just edit this bit out and start your episode later at the juicy stuff that you're really interested in, if that works better for your episode. Some examples of opening questions might be, tell me about your research, or what's been your experience of doing a PhD, or what do you do in your job? And you should also try to ask open questions. Closed questions have a one-word or yes-no answer, but open questions can have much broader answers. Open questions invite your interviewee to give more detail, talk about their experiences and opinions, and generally help the conversation to flow rather than it being a kind of Q&A interrogation. And finally, if you're not feeling confident about doing interviews, practice. Ask a friend for help and then treat it like a real episode. Have a particular topic, do your planning and preparation, and record it. It might feel a little bit awkward at first, but interviewing is a skill, and the more you do it, the better you will become. So the final tip on podcasting is listening to other podcasts. Listening to other podcasts can help you get a feel for the different ways you can make a podcast and help you work out what you like and don't like and how you would like your own podcast to be. Try listening to a range of podcasts, including some outside of your topic area, and make some notes about what you liked and what you didn't, and how you could apply that to your own podcast. What kept you listening, and when did you drift off? But remember, some podcasts have huge production teams, and others are just one person in their living room. So keep in mind the context of the podcast that you're listening to, and your own context and what resources you have available. On the podcasting tips page, there's a list of podcasts that some different PGRs at Exeter enjoy. They all discuss and disseminate research and academic ideas, but in very different ways. So check out that list if you're not sure where to start.